Rob sent me this pocket knife a while back. Check him out on Instagram and YouTube. Steel Warrior knives are imported by Frost Cutlery. They feature brass liners, nickel-silver bolsters, and supposedly bone scales. I guess red bulldogs have brittle bones. The blades were in great shape. They appeared to have very little use and no resharpening. The blades were made of 440 stainless steel. Other than the damaged scales, it seemed like a pretty nice pocket knife. You'd think I could come up with a better putty knife. The scales popped right off. I decided to pull the pins that went from the liner to the scales, since one was missing anyway. The pin in the middle was structural and went all the way through the assembly. I used a small file to remove the mushrooming on the ends of the pin. And I sanded the dried glue off of the liners. For the scales, I used some walnut that was sent to me by T-Rex. You should check him out on Instagram and YouTube as well. I carefully cut and drilled the scales to fit between the bolsters and over the pin. Then I traced the outside contour and used my 1x30 belt sander to get close to the line prior to glue up. I wanted to keep the glue from oozing through these pinholes. So I wedged some wax paper behind the holes with pieces of popsicle stick. I used 30-minute clear epoxy and a couple of C-clamps to glue the scales. Here it is after the epoxy cured. The wax paper and popsicle sticks work pretty well. I tried Scoutcrafter's aluminum soda can trick to protect the bolsters while I sanded. I used an aggressive 40 grit belt to roughly shape the scales. Here you can see how much material I removed with the belt sander. I used a sanding drum in my drill press to match the contour of the liners. Here's what the scales look like after the machine sanding. Even with the aluminum can strips, I still had a slight casualty on one bolster. I protected the bolsters with a few layers of electrical tape and began hand sanding with 60 grit. Here's one side sanded down to 220. The grain was really nice. I switched to thinner tape and continued with the 220 grit to get the scales closer to flush with the bolsters. Then I removed the tape and sanded both the scales and the bolsters with 320. I applied several coats of Birchwood Casey's tru-oil. I scuffed the scales with superfine steel wool in between coats. Chuck insisted on closely supervising the flitzing of the bolsters. This Steel Warrior pocket knife was in decent shape except for the damaged scales. I think the walnut scales are a definite upgrade. Thanks to Resto Rob for sending me this Steel Warrior pocket knife. And thanks to T-Rex for the wood for the scales. This was a fun project. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Here are some more of my pocket knife projects you might enjoy.